Nara, naro, te tangata, toitu, te whenua. He mihi tēnei ki te kaupapa o te rā, ara te pitu kōrero mō te pungao pai. He mihi koa ana kia koutou ko Nikki Sutherland tōku ingoa. And I'd like to thank you for choosing to spend your time with us here today. As usual, I've opened our webinar on clean and clever energy with the whakatauke that man comes and goes, but the land is here forever. We've got a great lineup for you today. We're going to hear from Dr. Marcus Pelliner on our strategy refresh, from Karen Orr on our sector program, our manufacturing standard pathway, from Ollie Howitt on some of our RETA insights, and from Russ Duncan on residential electrification. But first, many of you will know that this is my last webinar, and I leave EECA at the end of June after an absolutely fabulous 3.5 years of helping to support New Zealand businesses grapple with the challenge of electrification and climate change. It's been an enormous privilege for me over that time to observe the great strides across New Zealand in innovative technology, the learning on a national basis that has been shared together, and putting competitive competition beside, and what our contractors, consultants and engineers have achieved in such a short space of time is nothing short of exceptional. Then, of course, there's the dial that's been turned on carbon abatements. All of this progress has happened in some of the most trying economic conditions for businesses in decades. And it's a piece of work that's just been an absolute privilege to be here for. So stepping into my shoes is Richard Briggs, who leads our other delivery group focused on transport, public sector and residential homes. He'll be very well known to most of you. He's been at EECA for a long time. He's a great guy and a good friend. So with those thanks to you and those acknowledgements, let's head back to the program. Next slide, thanks. This is what we're going to run through today. We'll start with the strategy refresh, and then as usual, we'll have Glenn rounding up with questions at the end. So I'm going to hand over to our CE, Dr. Marcus Pelliner, and leave you with him.
Okay, thank you, Nikki. And I just want to acknowledge the incredible work you've done at EECA and just the amount of energy efficiency and decarbonization and the projects that you've been responsible to lead and the positive impact that's going to have for New Zealand. So thank you very much for all of that really good work. And I also want to just thank everyone who's here today. We can't, the work is done. I like to think of ourselves as supporters. The work is done by yourselves. And so we really appreciate the engagement and the partnership with the sector and the market. We are here to support all things energy efficiency, all things energy decarbonization, and keen to share some of the new strategic direction for EECA and just kind of talk a little bit about what that means for us and next steps. So next slide, please. So our purpose stays the same. It is still at the heart of what we do, which is around mobilizing New Zealanders to be world leaders in clean and clever energy use. There's a lot of opportunity for us to do things in clean and clever ways in New Zealand, and particularly our energy sector. And I'm very keen that EECA is there at the front helping, particularly helping from a perspective of the user first. The little bit of what's happening at the macro scale in terms of, we have actually some pretty good indicators. Emission data seems to be, showing an improving situation. There's a lot of focus on doubling renewable generation from the new government, large strides in industrial decarbonization, thanks to GIDI and other efforts. And the RMA national direction on greenhouse gas emissions is going to provide that regulatory backstop. It will be, with GIDI finishing, the intent is still to support industrial decarbonization. We will find different ways to do that. And so we are working through that with stakeholders, and likely we'll be able to kind of reach out and test some thoughts with you as that gets further developed. Next slide, please. So with the changing environment and the context for us, it was time to update. It was a good time, the right time to update EECA's strategy. It has served us well for the last 7 or so years. We had a very kind of vertical siloed focus area approach with transport, business, government, and homes. What I really wanted to do with this strategy refresh was to think about more horizontal or thematic focus areas. You know, what we noticed when we were going to talk to our partners was that you weren't thinking about stationary energy in isolation of fleet energy and transport energy, nor were the conversations around scope 1 emissions being done in isolation of, you know, scope 3 emissions. And so I wanted to try and set ourselves up so that when we are engaging with the market and we are working with yourselves on your energy transition journey, we can provide a holistic approach to the problem. So I've simplified the strategy to 3 focus areas, what you see here. Energy efficiency first, empowering energy users. I really want us to be in the corner of the energy user, consumers as well as organizations, and then accelerate renewables. And I'll just spend a minute just kind of unpacking what each of those mean. This really aligns with the statutory purpose for EECA in the Act. So the EECA Act has us to support, promote, and encourage energy efficiency, conservation, and renewables. So these focus areas are pretty much bang on the black and white in the Act for us. It's just what it means for us under the current context. So energy efficiency first is really about getting the sector, getting the market to understand the value of energy efficiency. You know, often the money is on the table. Energy efficiency is a great thing to do, and it's a no-brainer. But even if it's on the table, there aren't enough hands to grab it because everyone is so busy with the day in and day out of, you know, running their business. And so we want to help organizations understand the value of energy efficiency and then be able to help them capture that value. So a lot of the work here is on around case studies, supporting innovation, demonstration, basically trying to make it as easy as possible so that people make an energy efficient choice first. There's also a really important role that our standards and regulations play in this space. We're a product regulator. We are constantly looking at how we make sure New Zealand standards are in line with Australia or in line with our other international jurisdictions that we want to peg ourselves with. And that is kind of the quiet giant of lifting energy performance and intensity in New Zealand. Second focus area is empowering energy users. Really deliberate here about thinking around the user experience and thinking about the consumer or youth or the business experience rather than the market settings. You know, the Electricity Authority and others will think about market settings. We are here to try and help people control their energy, manage the energy in the best way possible for themselves. So this includes, you know, the kind of standard information and engagement type of activity we've been doing in the past, but it also is much more explicit around supporting distributed flexibility and demand management. And we think, you know, I think there's a real win-win here of the decarbonization story that we haven't told as well as we could have around not only are we unlocking emission savings by supporting fuel switching into electricity or into another low carbon fuel, if done right, we are also increasing flexibility for users to be able to then offer that value to the market. And so the network and the electricity grid and the security supply wins, but ultimately users get better value for the energy they have. And so I'm really interested in us trying to help organizations explore how they can not only just manage and take control of their energy use, but how they can use that control for improved flexibility for their own gain, but for the wider system gain as well. Energy efficiency first, empowering energy users. And then the third one here is around accelerating renewables. And when I talk about accelerating renewables, which is a clear government priority from the Minister of Energy, I don't envision us getting stuck into the supply side, the generation upstream side of renewables that's being taken care of elsewhere. This is around electrification or fuel switching, transition low carbon fuels like biomass, biogas, anything that is going to help us on a decarbonization journey. So the work we do here is there's a big kind of plank around home electrification that we're looking at. We're really interested in low transition fuels, hydrogen, biomass, biogas, where appropriate and where it makes sense that supports decarbonization. And we're also supporting the EV public chargers, which probably less relevant for today's session, but still a really important focus area and priority for us at EECA is to support the rollout of the public EV charging network. Ultimately, what we're trying to do all of this for is so that people save energy, they save money, and we reduce emissions. Next slide, please. I think, I touched on this last time. It's probably worth kind of just rediscussing. Those are the focus areas, and how do we provide support? How can we help? We have three levers. We are a product regulator. It's probably not the easiest or fastest way to get help from us, but absolutely, in our two other levers are how we more commonly engage with the market. Information and motivation. So this is about getting everyone to understand and then be informed, but also get the intent and motivation to act around clean and clever energy use. And then there's targeted investment and support. So yes, Giddy is gone, which took up a lot of space. There is still, in its absence, lots of opportunity for us to have targeted support for decarbonization and for particularly around innovation and demonstration of both energy efficiency projects as well as energy decarbonization projects. Next slide. Thank you. And I think this kind of just sort of talks at a little bit of, what are our areas of interest, and hopefully just reaffirms what I've just said. We are looking at how we support the electrification of the energy system. How do we actually make the most use of that system? Because efficiency doesn't have to mean using less. It's just using our energy as productively as possible to increase prosperity. And then how do we kind of coordinate, use demand management, distributed flexibility to coordinate between supply and demand? And actually, our coordination role within the regional energy transition accelerators is something that I feel is a natural fit for us at EECA. And so we're looking at how we might continue those. That is me in a very fast canter through a strategy refresh here at EECA. But I just want to close out by, again, thanking everybody for engaging with us, partnering with us on projects. We are very keen to continue to support your energy transition journey. And so I hope that you continue to reach out to the team here at EECA and that we can continue to be as helpful as possible. Thank you. I'll hand it over now to Oliver.
Thank you, Marcos, and tēnā koutou katoa. So yes, my name is Ollie, and my role here at EECA is to run the RETA program. So today I'll start by giving a little bit of a background about the RETA program in case you're not familiar with it, where we're currently at with it. And then I'll give a bit of an update about two other things that we've been working on behind the scenes related to the core RETA program. It's a bit weird presenting like this. I assume there are people listening at the other end, but if you do have any questions, there's a Q&A feature. So if I haven't addressed something that you're wondering, just ask it in the Q&A, and we'll get to it at the end. So next slide, thank you. So the RETA program, it stands for Regional Energy Transition Accelerator. The clue is in the title, I suppose. We look at a regional approach for the energy transition, and round one of this program, we're focusing on large stationary heat processes. So their decarbonisation pathways and the implications on the region. So we look at each site, we build up their decarbonisation pathway, and then we combine all the sites within a region to look at the implications for a region and what that impact that might have on electricity infrastructure and biomass infrastructure, as well as other things that come into different regional analyses. What's shown on the screen is our general process that the RETA program takes. Each region is a little bit different, but this is kind of the main design of the program. So we start with a regional stakeholder kickoff meeting where we invite everyone to come and we talk about the program, and then we get perspectives from the ground on what regional decarbonisation means for them and their organisations. We then go about and our core work streams complete their analysis. The three main ones are demand assessment to look at who the sites are, what their decarbonisation projects are. Another work stream looks at the electricity availability across the region, so how much spare capacity is there at the moment and what the work required and cost may be if each of these sites were to electrify their process heat demand. We're another work stream that looks at the availability and cost of biomass across the region. So how much is there and how much could that cost to use those residues for processed heat? After those work streams are complete, we present back to the region in a more of a workshop session, and we gather feedback from the region on how those work streams, the results from those work streams. And then after that, we curate the final integrated report, taking into account the analysis from the work streams and anything else from the region, and eventually we publish it. So next slide, please. So this is kind of the core RETA program. We have published 7 of the reports. They're available on our website. Excellent reading. Do get amongst and have a look through them all. So we've completed the 6 in the South Island. We've published the Northland report. We're in the process of publishing Bay of Plenty now, just waiting for the final bits to fall into place, and then that will be published. Followed by Tairāwhiti, Taranaki, Hawke's Bay, then Waikato and Manawatu Whanganui. And we are currently in the planning phase for how we might tackle Auckland and Wellington RETA regions. Yeah. So that's a bit of a very quick overview of the core RETA program, but off the back of it, we have been working on a few other things. So one of the things is a South Island overall report. So now that we've completed all of those 6 South Island regional analyses, we are having a look at what that means for the island as a whole, and it can take into account biomass moving between regions, for example, as well as painting an overall picture for the island. So we're hoping to publish that in June, just depending on how the remaining work is completed. But yeah, just a few high-level numbers that we're looking at. So there was nearly 300 sites across all of the South Island RETA reports. And And from those sites, we ran the analysis for about 600 different decarbonisation projects, which form the basis for the decarbonisation pathways. So the reason there's more projects than sites is because each site has got a range of different projects that they could go through for decarbonisation. So the graph that you can see there shows the impact of demand reduction projects in the region, well, across all of South Island regions. And that's kind of what Marcos was talking about, the energy efficiency approach first. So the cheapest, kilowatt hour you can get is the kilowatt hour you don't use. So what smart things can be implemented by businesses to first reduce their demand? We then look at heat pump projects. So for end users that are under 100 degrees, heat pumps make excellent sense because of that awesome coefficient of performance where you get 3 or 4 units of energy for 1 unit of electricity. We then look at, okay, after demand reduction and heat pump projects, what fuel switch is available for the remaining thermal needs of these sites. And predominantly, these fall into 2 buckets. You can decarbonise using biomass as a fuel or decarbonising using electricity as a fuel. We have looked at some other fuel sources where appropriate. And we've split out which has already been confirmed by businesses throughout the South Island, which are the confirmed biomass fuel switch and confirmed electricity fuel switch. And then the real focus of the remaining parts of the RETA is the unconfirmed fuel switch decisions. What does the economics look like for those unconfirmed fuel switch decisions? And are they likely to go biomass or electricity? And when might that occur? So just highlight one important thing about this graph is the demand reduction heat pump efficiency projects do reduce thermal fuel demand by about 25%. And then that has important knock-on effects for reduced infrastructure investment and capital investment required by businesses. So just highlighting the importance of those. So overall, South Island addresses about 1.7 million tonnes per annum of CO2 emissions, and there's 1.5 gigawatt of total installed fossil fuel capacity. Okay, next slide. This is kind of the end result of the South Island analyses. So putting all these 6 regions together, we show a business as usual decarbonisation pathway. So this is businesses implementing their decarbonisation projects as we already know about them. So they've financially committed to these projects already. So that's the top darker line. We then look at the marginal abatement cost for each decarbonisation project against at the Climate Change Commission's cost of NZUs on the ETS. And come up with a MAC optimal pathway which abates emissions much sooner, showing that it is economic to decarbonise sooner than what businesses have currently committed to, saving a lot of carbon. So that's emissions going down. So obviously people are doing fuel switching within there. Across South Island, we're seeing maybe about 60%. The economics is indicating about 60% would go to electrification versus about 40% for biomass. That 40% biomass additional demand, quite coincidentally, was almost equal to the total assessed availability of biomass resources across the South Island, which was quite a unique coincidence. But yeah, hopefully we're running through all the analysis now, and hopefully that will be published in June, and you should be notified of that when that is available for reading. Next slide, please. So this is another thing that we've been working on around the RETA program is how to better share the information that we're gleaning out of this program. And we've launched an MVP of this map in February. We're calling it an MVP because there are other things that we want to do eventually with an interactive map. But this will be populated as each RETA report is published, and it just contains some of the key information that is included within the RETA program. Next slide, please. So just a couple of pointers about the map. Do go and have a look at it. Just Google Rita EECA map, and it should be one of the top hits. So one key thing to note is the information is downloadable. So if you look at the screenshot on the right there, you just have to click on the 3 dotted lines, scroll down to export, and you can export that map layers information. So for the Rita load sites, that includes EECA's assessment for their alternative fuel requirements, so their MAC optimal biomass energy, if they were to decarbonise through that, or their peak electrical demand, if they were to go electricity. For the electricity layer, the GXPs and zone substations, we include information about existing spare N and N-1 capacities. So the the snippet on the left shows, Mosgiel substation has got 5 MVA of spare N-1 at the moment, and 13 odd of spare N capacity. So it's important information that maybe, I don't know, someone looking to install a greenfield site might want to peruse this information to see where there's lots of spare capacity at the moment. We also include the locations of sort of forestry and wood processes. That's all from my update today. So I'm going to hand over to Karen to present on updates from our sector program. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Ollie. It was fantastic. It's great to see the progress you're making there. It was all quite exciting as you work your way up the country. Always good to start at the south, I reckon. So kia ora koutou, kua kia ora no toka wingua. I'm from EECA's sector decarbonisation team, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we've been working on within that. So if we can flick to the next slide, please. So sector decarbonisation, it's a big word, but frankly, what we've done is made it a little bit easier to wrap your head around. Firstly, a little bit of a reminder about how we work. So if you're not familiar with the sector program, we partner up with industry bodies to take a sectorial approach for businesses to look at how they can manage their energy use and reduce their emissions. So we work with both industry bodies and also overseas experts to tailor a 5-step process, and really that's designed to help people know where to start and how to start. So commonly that's what we hear, is that businesses don't know how to do this. So taking the stepped approach provides an opportunity for businesses to step in where they see fit. Everyone's often on a different part of the journey. There's no, unfortunately, perfect solution to climate change. So having this type of approach really chunks it down and enables people to either get on at the start, which is our initial 3 steps are really around looking at how you can be as efficient as possible by building up your knowledge and awareness around how you're using energy within your business, before you'd look into the steps which are a little bit harder on the pocket around demand reduction and fuel switching. So it's quite a logical process. It does involve a set of resources and so on to support businesses, and really they've been tailored to help us take a systems approach that we've found works quite well. It isn't a static process, so we're constantly evolving new things within that. And the reason that we'd really encourage us businesses to get on board with this is we've seen across the board a lot of good opportunities to not only save some dollars, but also to improve your productivity. And in so doing, you're lowering your impact on the environment and really future-proofing your business for success. So it's where I think we'd all like to be honest. Right, we're going to step into the next slide, please. So typically the types of information we provide under our pathways is we'll initially look at a process overview. So within that sector, what's the common places that energy is used within the process? And that's really just to help to inform where to start looking with managing your energy, what the opportunities might be. We often find people might be measuring their energy spend, but not necessarily how they're using energy within their system. So we've got a really simple downloadable Excel spreadsheet. It's yours to own. We don't see the data that you input in it, so it's really how you manage it. And it provides the opportunity to input your energy bills and your output to give you an energy intensity measure. And That really helps you to have a better understanding of how you're using energy and start to interrogate that information a little bit. By doing so, it also enables you to set some measures so you can target some changes. And obviously, we're looking for energy reduction within that. But you're able to tailor something that's going to suit your business in the current time and obviously set you up with a stretch target for the future. To help with doing that, we've commonly got checklists, and these are really focused on no cost or quite low cost changes you can make by looking across your process and looking at some relatively simple things that you can do. And it might be as simple as saying, turn the lights off. I hate to use that old adage, but frankly, it still counts. So really, a lot of the steps there are things that can be implemented pretty quickly and really without too much time or concern. We then will take a little bit of a look from a technology perspective. So we'll do a scan out globally, but also look at other industries that might be applicable to the type of sector we're looking at, to see what else is available in terms of innovations, best practice and technology that businesses within that sector might want to consider in the future. And that enables them to really look there at what are the fuel switching opportunities that they might like to take a look at. And we're constantly adding to this type of information as we go along. We're going to move to the next slide now, please. So here's a fantastic pictorial overview of all the current sector pathways we have live, so 11 in total. We don't do this in isolation. We're heavily reliant on both our industry body partners and also overseas experts that we collaborate with. So we're often updating information that we may have available within these pathways or adding to it as new opportunities arise. So really good idea if you're involved with any of these sectors to sign up to the pathways, and we'll share within the chat function a link about how you can do that. That enables you to be the first to know when we've put something new out, so we've published something new. It also enables a little bit of interaction so we can hear what else you might like to know. That's always of great importance to us. We're always very keen to keep improving on things. So if there's things you'd like to see, we'd certainly love to hear from you. So if we can move along, we'll take a look at our newest cab off the rank, which we're quite excited about. It's a manufacturing decarbonisation pathway. And this is really set up for manufacturers that don't fit within any of our existing pathways. What this does is it provides them with an opportunity to manage an opportunity to start looking at their energy management journey. So they'll know where to start within their business. They'll be provided with a step-by-step guide to reducing their energy consumption through both efficiency opportunities and understanding what low emissions alternatives may be applicable to them. We've got a couple of new resources in development for this particular pathway. One of them is an asset replacement strategy guide, and that'll really help to look across the whole of life of your plant and equipment and help to inform good decision making, particularly investment decision making, as you manage your assets quite closely. The other resource that should be published within the next month or two is a DIY approach to emissions reduction. So it'll be a templated guide that you can pick up and build within your business to help to show where energy reduction opportunities are for your particular business and plan out again for the future. So keep an eye out for these. As soon as they're published, we'll have them up there and we'll be sharing them with you. So we can just move to the next slide, please. So if there's one thing I can ask you to do today, it's to sign up to our programs. It's nothing painful, I can assure you of that. What we do is we provide basically emails on more or less a monthly basis, and they'll look at each step of the journey that I've just talked about and go into some detail about a resource within that. So it really provides a little bit of detail, but it's very much bite-sized, so it's all quite achievable. The other great advantage by signing up is you'll get the latest information that we have available. As soon as we have something live, if we're running a webinar or doing an event, you'll be the first to know. So it's a really good opportunity that I'd really like to encourage. So let's keep talking. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Russ. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. And kia ora, everybody. My name's Russell Duncan. I'm one of the consumer engagement and marketing team here at EECA, and really keen to give you a quick update on our residential electrification program. Today is a quick romp through, I appreciate. So for those that are interested, certainly a conversation I'm keen to keep having, so I can absolutely pick it up out the back of today if this sparks any interest. Next slide there, Hinch. So obviously, hearing Marcos unpack our new strategy gives us a really good insight into how this work aligns with EECA's role. But we see a real benefit for both consumers and the systems we work in, supporting Kiwis to make their homes greener, more efficient, and reduce bills. It's certainly not about solving everything in week one. This will take time. But what we found through the research, which we'll talk a bit to today, is really tens of thousands of Kiwis are making decisions in their homes every month. So being there to support that totally makes sense. Particularly, I think, when those decisions are happening, they're actually committing those homes to those decisions for the next 10 to 15 years. Next slide there, Ange. It's crucial, though, I think, EECA is an evidence-based organisation, and we really wanted to build a strong evidence base for this work, and it's certainly not a one and done. We'll continue to grow and evolve it. But two substantial pieces have really been published now in the past 6 weeks or so. Both can be found on the insight pages of the EECA website. The link's there, but you shouldn't have too much trouble finding them. Through our consumer quarterly monitors, so we monitor consumers' views and attitudes and beliefs throughout the year, but through our quarterly monitors, we track the biggest issues facing New Zealanders. And right now, cost of living is clearly the number one issue. And even those New Zealanders that have financial capability in their lives are looking at decisions through that cost of living lens. So it's really important for us, I think, in this electrifying of the home space to really understand financial impacts, what it means financially for consumers, and then also to really understand where New Zealanders were at and what our current households are made up of in terms of appliance and their stock age and the likes, and then understand attitudes, motivators, and barriers to switching. Thanks, Hamish. I think at the highest level, the modelling we have done, and then we've certainly applied EECA's inputs, it shows that when it comes to the average New Zealand house, the numbers stack up. They stack up financially, and emissions reduce dramatically. This is looking at key appliances, vehicles, and combining both the emissions and the costing. We know every home is different, though, and every situation is different. And of course, modelling has an element of looking into a slightly uncertain future. But even with that built in and the variables allowed, the top line view is this does stack up, which really gives this stream of work, this initiative, good confidence. So that's sort of top line. But if we dig a little bit deeper, and next slide. We dig a bit deeper and we see the scale of what's really possible. Again, in an average home, significant overall energy reduction. We see consumer savings, both in energy bills, but also, and I think this is a really key part of the work, over the lifetime of the appliances. So those payback periods, which includes upfront costs and installation over the lifetime, what can be saved. We see the role of solar and batteries and also consumer energy behaviour around peak time energy use to see how that can really support smoothing the load. And again, I think, one thing that's becoming really clear is while at a house-by-house level, we might not see the big dials move, the mass of this and the scale of it really does create a big impact. Next, Hamish. But it's not without challenges, and the research has done a good job for us to really surface some of those key barriers and barriers that create opportunities. Our appliance stock is old, and we're seeing a third of New Zealand appliances are over a decade old. We've got one of the oldest vehicle fleets around as well, and we also found through the research that New Zealanders simply won't replace until end of life. And that's not a bad thing. But when you combine those two, it actually creates a bit of an opportunity, which is why I think good consumer information in the short term is a key role. We know that the most common voice when it comes to supporting consumers isn't necessarily us. Often, actually, we're finding it sitting with tradespeople, family and friends, the whānau, the wider networks. So we're very keen in this work to also support those groups to be the sort of, I guess, the best informed informer, if that sort of makes sense. We're also well aware, and it's come through a lot in the research, that the benefits of this electrification in the early stage tilts towards Kiwis who are in a more financially comfortable situation, right? It tilts towards homeowners who have access to funding or access to cheaper interest to make some of these changes. So we're certainly working on understanding about the best ways to support those not in this position. And obviously, it's not the only work we do. You can see how this sits alongside programs like Warma Kiwi Homes to make sure, we're supporting all New Zealanders just in very different ways. And we also know that every home won't stack up for every situation either. So, for us, it's about key information to support that decision making. We're certainly not here to tell people what they must do. Thanks, Hamish. So with all those really big insights have been super valuable for program planning, but also really for helping us develop consumer-facing content. And that's certainly an area we're into now, taking these insights, making that content both sector-facing and also consumer-facing, and making it fit for purpose across our platforms, both obviously on EECA and then our GenLess consumer-facing platform as well. As we learn more and the market responds, this is certainly an area we're going to be growing into. We're really keen to look at our tools and our resources, and I think, future state how these personalise a bit more of that information, so we can, look, yes, at an average New Zealand home, but consumers can come on and sort of plug in their situation, and we can see what electrification does for them as well. Thanks, Hamish. So we are at really an early stage of this piece of work, and building that evidence foundation has been a big part of it, but some pretty exciting milestones coming up, and certainly areas that we're keen to have lots of people and partners involved with. We don't want to go alone here. From here, really, the reports are now published. They're up on EECA's website. We'll continue to look at different modelling, different household scenarios to, again, make it as bespoke as we can for New Zealanders interested for what it means for their situation. We are updating that consumer-focused information, again, on EECA, but particularly GenLess, so we can really ground this and link to what those motivators are for Kiwis to find out a bit more. And we're looking at our next research priorities, and I think that's really important, because this situation or this area doesn't stand still. So including where New Zealanders are at in terms of our electricians, our plumbers, those important trades that are a big part of the decision-making process. Really keen to understand for those that don't own their own homes and potentially the landlord market. We know there's that sort of split incentive challenge, so keen to understand a bit more about that. And then really establishing key partnerships is a big play for us. We know the answer here is not one sole voice, actually. We don't all necessarily need to be saying the exact same thing, but I think the more of us with a range of good voices that Kiwis trust, talking similar stories, will really support this work and support these opportunities. So that is a very quick romp, and I'm sorry I get a lot of words in per minute, I know, but that is a quick romp through our home electrification where we are today. But I guess I can't reiterate enough that we're keen to work with others. We're keen to have other voices and support in on this one. So please do reach out. This is an area you're interested in, both as a business, a consumer, or as a partner with it. So thank you. I'll throw back to Glenn, and we might have some Q&A coming through. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Russ, just before you disappear,
Yeah,
there is a question here. I might as well get it in there straight away. When will the electric homes report modelling be made available? Website says it is coming. Is that?
Yes. So we're just working through the modelling now to get it in the best publishable state that we can. So it's actually usable. So we are working with the modelling. Got a key member of, and many will know Gareth Gretton, Dr. Gareth Gretton, has led the modelling from our side. He's actually on a bit of leave. So I think the fair thing to do is make sure he runs his eyes across it before we put it up. So I'm not blaming Gareth for having a holiday, but that will be a key moment for us to get it up and live. But we absolutely intend to publish all the modelling.
What, do you think that'll be sort of months?
Yeah,
or
look,
weeks, or I don't even know how long Gareth's on holiday. So
look, next month would be my expectation. Okay. If we could get maybe a month out of the road, but then get it up pretty quick after that, and just making sure we get it in the right shape. Cool.
Thanks for that. Yeah, kia ora koutou. I'm Glenn Wellington, Manager Market Partnerships, just in for my cameo at the end to cover off the Q&A. So if you have got any questions from our speakers today or anything more generally, just put that in the Q&A chat, or, obviously there's contact points to get in touch if you think of something afterwards. There's a few in here already, though. From Graham here, just wondering if EECA might play a role in requiring obligations or incentivizing retailers, probably largely meaning electricity retailers, but I suppose energy retailers and distributors to promote energy efficiency. I'm not sure if Nikki's got a view. I can't necessarily answer the obligations. I'm not sure if that might be more an EA type area, but what I can say is obviously we do work quite closely with the gentailers and right through the smaller retailers where there's some new niche solutions coming to the market. They're a key channel, like you mentioned, Graham. Getting information, particularly into the smaller parts of the market. We have our own direct relationships with the large end, obviously, but the sector program, like we've seen today, getting their information, out through the gentail is key and useful. So making sure they're aware of what we've got, and they have played a sort of fairly key role in RETA, particularly the larger gentailers. They got sort of solution options that can support some of those bigger projects. But I don't know, Nikki. No problem if you don't have a view on when it comes to obligations.
Sure. So
Yeah.
it's an area where partnerships are key, and rather than setting obligations, and so we're working pretty closely with the retailers. We've got partnerships developing with ERANs because they're really interested in what energy efficiency can do to offset some of the consumer cost increases that we've seen through the news are definitely happening at some point. And the Commerce Commission, of course, is really interested in our increasing regulatory abilities here, so that rather than putting the obligations in place, we can do it through the standards, through the energy efficiency standards. So yeah, we've got a lot of support for that work, and it's really good to see the industry being quite integrated on it as well. And I know that hasn't been the case all the time. So it's not just the businesses coming together, it's the agencies coming together to collaborate too is great to see.
Cool. Thanks for that, Nikki. Ollie, this is probably one for you. I'll give you a shot at it anyway, maybe a little bit early. Daniela just asking, now we've got this, particularly the view of the South Island, how do some of those outcomes as far as decarbonisation go align with sort of the emission reduction plans and sort of national level budgets? Have we had a chance yet to look at alignment of maybe those optimised pathways and how it looks relative to the national goal?
Yeah, sure. So as part of the South Island report that we'll publish, we'll show the impact that the MAC optimal pathway may have against budget periods, as well as the BAU pathway, and put those up. We suppose the policies or regulations around that we're obviously got full view of the coal boiler ban, as well as we'll be supporting the national direction for industrial process heat. So we'll be helping individual businesses in that regard, but probably above my pay grade to talk about anything else.
Just probably one more thing is in the same vein of what I said before. We've also been sharing the RETA report outtakes with the Climate Change Commission, and so that they're really interested in the data that we're able to share, so that they can include that as they start looking at in the usual process of updating the pathways, and especially the work they're doing at the moment. So just another way that all those dots are being connected, which is great.
Cool, thanks for that, team. Brett Eads asking a question here, which I'm pretty sure Brett has good experience in, obviously, too, is around what support are we doing with regard to kilowatt demand reduction, sort of, capacity or peak demand type issues, rather than just kilowatt hour demand reduction. I suppose from my perspective, it is really key part of all our programs. If you look at our ETA program, how we approach RETA, and even through into sector when we're helping smaller businesses, is actually understanding demand profiles and peak demand, because that's sort of the real key when it comes to the capacity of boiler or heating solution, particularly in that area. So it's something really key to getting things right when you're doing your decarb plan is addressing those peak demands. The question's a bit more around, sort of probably positioned a bit more around financial support. Obviously, with Giddy and things, there's no direct support from EECA, but I think what we've seen though is, innovative solutions around, the obvious stuff around load shifting and getting those peaks down and addressing that in the assessment phase, but then potentially innovative solutions around either integrated solutions, not just, full fuel switching to one fuel type or technology type. So integrating heat recovery and heat pumps and other parts, but flexibility and demand response. And we've certainly seen some of those quite innovative and smart projects that are are maybe retaining an asset for those sorts of periods to really help the system and deal with peaks. So it's
I might just chip in three things really quickly.
Yeah.
So number one, our EV smart charging regulatory standard program is squarely focused at this, and we're pouring lots of effort into that. Number two, the work that we're doing on demand flexibility, again, part of our strategic refresh is to divert and focus resources on those two things. So they're squarely tackling the peak. Number three, in terms of investment, we're already funding a couple of research projects that are focused on how we can use DF for these purposes. So if you've got a research project that is not the same as the ones that we're funding, we'd be interested in hearing about it. But also with our technology demonstration, it's never just been technology, it's always been process, practice improvement demonstration. So if there is something there that is demand flex in nature or an opportunity to prove an innovative way of responding to the peak, then we're interested in hearing about that as well.
Yep, cool. That's right. The forward-looking stuff where we're heading now is good. There's actually one other question here in the Q&A anyway. So Irene just asking around biogas has been mentioned a number of times, and what is EECA doing to look at supporting biogas more. Again, I'll just touch on what we are doing already. It does come up. Rita, we've covered it in one of the regions, and it really highlights it as a very sort of fairly site specific response. But we had also supported the Becca First Gas investigation into biogas opportunity as a whole across New Zealand, and we continue to do that on a feasibility study level as well. Our support for bands, obviously there's bioenergy working streams within bands as well, which we are party to. So always interested in, and there's some new projects. Obviously Giddy has some biogas projects, and the insights that we hope to share out of those and help development of future projects, and even as recently as right now, we're through our tech demo, we're looking at a interesting biogas project too. So if you've got projects or studies or otherwise, then we're always happy to discuss and be involved in that. But it will be a thread, as we're now more sort of integrated. That will always be part of what we do. So unless there's any other questions pop up, I think there's a slide there, Hamish, on obviously there's key contact points, but what's up next? Our next session will probably be around July, which will be quite good timing. Obviously, we've got the government budget at the end of May, and a fairly quick period heading into our new financial year from July. So we should be in a pretty good place to talk to the program of work ahead across EECA. The energy end use database is getting a bit of a refresh, as is done on a periodic basis. So a bit of a deep dive proposed into that. There's some new insights around business and potentially Giddy and the likes. So look out for that, and looking at a bit of an overview of the various tools we've got. I think unless there's anything else, I think we'll call it there. Thanks again for everyone for attending today. Really appreciate the numbers look really good, and hopefully we're providing useful information. And again, if you've got ideas that of what things you'd like us to present about, just feed them through also. But thanks again. Kia pai te rā. Until next time, have a good day. Cheers.